a child of their own gender. Now, this suggests that there is something compatible about the play styles of the two sexes, that is to say, of same-sex pairs, so that by the time children get into nursery school, there is a foundation already laid for them to prefer same-sex playmates. And in nursery school, that is very evident that, in fact, they do have that preference. It isn't as strong, however, as it is by the time they get into school by the age of 6. There you find segregation is much more extreme. I think that one of the reasons for the change is that after about the age of 3.5 or 4, children begin to have a much firmer idea of their own gender and the gender of other children. If a child tries to play openly with a child of the other sex, and frequently, and makes a favored friend out of that other child, that child is going to be teased. And the children themselves seem to be monitoring all of this. So there's a great deal of social pressure that is brought about by the kids themselves. One interesting thing about all of this, I think, is that children seem to segregate more strongly when they're in situations where they're making the choices themselves, rather than in situations that have been set up for them by adults. This is one of the reasons that I don't believe adults are mainly responsible for this tendency for children to congregate in same-sex groups. I think it's something that the children will do themselves if adults don't do it for them.
Boys and girls also use language differently.
The boys are more demanding and commanding in their styles of trying to get what they want. Girls tend to influence each other by suggestions and hints and statements like, "Why don't we?" or "let's." Boys are very much more likely to give a command, a directive, to interrupt one another, to top each other's stories, to use language for show-off. Girls seem to use language more for social cohesion within a group. They are more likely to wait, give another person a chance to have a turn to speak. And when they start to speak, they're more likely to refer to what the other person has just said.
Let's get the rhythm of the hands. Let's get the rhythm of the feet.
Now, of course, there are very bossy girls, but they boss in a way that's different from the way boys boss. So that it turns out that even for quite young children, boys can get girls to do what they ask them to do, or I should say order them to do. Girls have more trouble influencing the behavior of boys. Now, we know that in any human relationship, people stay together as friends or co-workers more easily and more voluntarily if each person can influence the other. So we have an initial reason why girls pull away from playing with boys, and in fact, they seem to be the ones that first start preferring same-sex playmates. Young children are very intense stereotypers, especially when they're between the ages of, say, 6 and 10. I think this is the time when they over-exaggerate what they see around them in the way of sex roles, so that even a child whose own mother is a policeman may believe very strongly that only men are policemen. These things are picked up from television, from observing the people that they see around them. It's for this reason that I don't believe individual parents can have as much effect on what children believe about gender and what they themselves might become as you would otherwise expect. Certainly not at this age. When they get to be teenagers, then they can begin to look at the example their parents set perhaps a little more strongly. So it's my feeling that the way to change children's stereotypes is to change society, because they are drawing generalizations from what they see.
Now, we all know that when girls and boys grow up, they often find themselves in different occupations and different social roles. But researchers have never been able to link this phenomenon to innate sex differences. In truth, women and men are often much more similar than different in almost all of their psychological traits and abilities. When differences do exist, and we've seen that some do, they're often fairly small and are more a matter of degree than a difference in kind.
Physical ability, for example. A woman like Steffi Graf may not be able to beat the very best male tennis stars, but she can easily beat all the other male players. In track, Top male runners are now only about 10% faster than top women runners. And this difference is getting smaller with better training, nutrition, and higher expectations for women. For the most part, male and female abilities overlap once their training is comparable. When job requirements are described simply in terms of the skills or talents necessary for the job, without mentioning sex, anyone who could meet those requirements, whether male or female, would then be qualified for the job, like female astronaut Sally Ride. Traditionally, however, job requirements have been phrased so that only one sex is seen fit for a certain job. What's important to recognize in all this is that how we think males and females differ influences our judgments more than how they actually do or don't differ. Thus, gender represents an important way in which we make social categorizations of people. We even create gender stereotypes in advertisements like this one: the macho male, the flirtatious female. And we act according to these stereotypes if we think that others expect it of us. We also tend to elicit from others the kind of stereotypic behavior we expect of them. In many different ways, gender stereotypes can channel our behavior and narrow the options available to us. They constrain what others and we ourselves expect and demand. In this way, they serve not only to limit our freedom, but also to narrow the range of our experiences. Of course, sex isn't the only category people use to organize the world into simpler units. They also categorize others in terms of age. Although earlier researchers and theorists tended to study development from birth through adolescence, a relatively new focus of psychology is the entire life cycle, including adulthood, old age, and death. How we mature in age next time. I'm Philip Zimbardo.
Funding for this program is provided by Annenberg CPB to advance excellent teaching. For information about this and other Annenberg CPB programs, call 1-800-LEARNER and visit us at www.learner.org. To learn more about the Annenberg CPB Channel series and workshops for teachers, how to take them for credit, how to buy them on video cassette, call 1-800-LEARNER and visit us at www.learner.org/channel.